And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Blake, I'm doing great. My thought after this weekend, I have to jump right into this. I feel like we need to have a little bit of a level-setting conversation about the current state of college football. I think that this week proved more than ever that there really is no true dominant separation team that is so much better that will go unscathed, undefeated, and win a national title. I think that this year has really proven that we are in a state where teams that would typically be in the middle of the top 25 or around that range are able to beat the top teams if they play a great football game. So, Blake, I opened this conversation for today because there were a lot of crazy outcomes. We really need to adjust how we talk about teams. And I think that goes for everybody. I think that goes for so many things. Just because you've got one loss does not mean that you're out of the mix. And just because you're undefeated at 1 week doesn't mean that you can't get clipped.
Pause.
Okay.
How many undefeated national champions have we had in the last 20 years? It's number one. And were we spoiled by the last 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 years in that? And then you go back and you look over the 2 decades and ask yourself, how many undefeated champions were there really? Let me give an example. Saban only did it once. So I bring up, I understand what you're saying. What were those teams and people saying when Saban got clipped? Right. And so I understand what you're saying. And I actually agree. I don't know if there's an elite team, but I don't know, as an example, some of those Bama teams were elite.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is less to do with the undefeated nature of it. Because those years where we watched Georgia lose when we thought they were elite, or Alabama lose when we thought they were elite, whenever those teams were that ended up winning titles that had
Georgia had a loss in a national title year. Right.
Those teams typically would lose to a team that was in the top conversation, in the top 4, in the top 3. It would usually be a loss in an SEC championship game or a road environment in a really difficult situation. We're getting something that we haven't seen in a very long time, or really at all in the sport, where any team can sneak up on any team. We're getting an unranked Louisville team what they did to Miami. We're getting Arizona State bouncing back against Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I think one from Miami. I got to be real with you. I think this Louisville team is better than anyone wants to give them credit for.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think that they're a title threat or anything like that, but I think that they're a good team. But this is my point. If you're a good team, if you're a good team, you can knock off a great team. That's what I'm getting at. That's not something that used to be able to happen before.
You might be right. But then when I hear those statements, and listen, here's the thing, Joe. I could be wrong in disagreeing with, and by the way, I clearly don't make fun of the child Band-Aid. I got hurt this weekend.
Okay.
All right. Yes, Brian Kelly made me punch a wall. That's neither here nor there. Regardless of that, I think of Ohio State with Urban Meyer, and I think of losing to Purdue. Right? I think of those types of situations where Purdue could barely get over 6-6 and they got clipped. Remember, we were calling them the spoiler makers. Not the Boilermakers, the spoiler makers. I get what you're saying. I just then go back to revisionist history and say to myself, well, there have been playoff teams that got clipped by 6-6 teams before. But at the same time, I don't know if I disagree with what you're saying. I don't know how to completely feel about this entire situation. Let me give an example. I think, and we'll talk about this in just a second. I think Florida's got a lot of really good talent. And I think Florida, talent-wise, could clip anybody in the country. And I do mean that from a talent perspective. Mm-hmm. But they can't. But if Dallas Wilson, a 5-star, if Vernon Brown, a 5-star, if DJ Lagway, a 5-star, went out there tomorrow and put up 400 yards passing, I don't think that we would be amazed by it. We wouldn't be shocked by it, because those are 3 potential first-round NFL picks. But I also sit here and say to myself that I look in the past and say, well, teams that have had more talent and better coaching have lost to 6-6 teams.
I think that, and I don't disagree with what we've obviously had instances of this in the past. Where I'm saying that things have completely shifted is that those were upsets. Those were games where you had no shot, no belief that a team like Purdue could step up and do anything against Ohio State. I'm trying to just more so get at the fact that there's a lot more balance to the point where a 4-1 Louisville team has a Chris Bell, they have an Isaac Brown. They have guys that are good enough that when they can step into a road environment against a Miami, and if Miami makes enough mistakes, they can knock them off. That is what transpired here. And by the way, Ohio State fans that I know we got Elks and we got Dick Buck in the Discord, and I know that I was tweeting about this on Friday night. My point is not saying that I think that Ohio State is going to get upset. They're guaranteed to get upset. They're flawed. They're going to lose to Michigan. That's not what my point was. My point is that I find it awfully arrogant I'm not calling Ohio State fans arrogant, but we can't have the arrogance as college football fans after what has happened to this point this season with all of the crazy outcomes of unexpected games when we all thought that it was just a de facto, this team was elite, and then something bad happened, something went in the opposite direction. We can't think that teams are going to be perfect and that everything is going to go their way. We just can't. Because Ohio State played a great damn game against Wisconsin, and they still have troubles running the ball. I just don't think that there's any team that is truly, truly perfect and unstoppable to this point. Teams can lose in unexpected fashions, and the brands that we're not used to talking about as the typical brands are now stepping up to the plate, which is why we ended up with Vanderbilt and Missouri and with Indiana and all these teams that typically aren't at the top of the mix.
We'll see. It's going to be an interesting point here. All right. Everyone do us a favor. Hit the like and share. Share to all those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You got the discretionary income. Joe and I are constantly over on FanDuel placing those bets with our good partners over at FanDuel. If you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, go to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. But we are extremely excited to have this football season brought to you by and partner with our good friends over at FanDuel. Joe and I did a earlier video of Billy Napier at Florida getting fired. We're not going to talk about it in great depth here. I suggest you go listen to our thoughts about Billy Napier being fired. It's on our YouTube channel. You can catch that out. But, Joe, since the firing has happened of Billy Napier, multiple people are coming out and saying that they believe that the top target for the Florida job is going to be one Lane Kiffin. We spoke about this earlier. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised at all?
No, and again, I think that as we talked about in the segment, I think that that's the first number one guy that you need to go after, and you need to get him to say no to you like 3-4 times. I would pressure him as much as you can and give him as much opportunity to say no by throwing as much money at him as possible. I think that Lane Kiffin's obviously the best candidate. There are other good candidates, but Kiffin has proven to be the best with experience and history in the state of Florida.
I think that more than any of these other programs that will be open, even more than Penn State, I think Florida is a juggernaut waiting to happen. I've been saying that for years. I think it's got the resources, the in-state talent. They've spent money in recruiting for a lame duck coach because they just want to be good. They're able to get guys like Dallas Wilson, DJ Lagway, and look, Joe, let's see what happens here. I don't think that you can look at any other coach until he just ultimately tells you, I'm not going. Mm-hmm. Now, from what I hear behind the scenes and from what Ole Miss people are reporting, their AD is trying to extend Lane Kiffin to make it impossible for him to leave the state of Mississippi. So it's going to be interesting to see where this one falls. If I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm not signing anything. Not right now.
No.
So I think regardless of what happens to Lane moving forward, I think that he has hit a ceiling at Ole Miss, and it depends on what he wants to go to. Joe, you got a 7-8 point game that he's going on the road to Georgia with not the same recruiting budget, not the same talent, and I just think you got to go there. And I think that he's going to be the most talked about coach of the next month and a half, 2 months, and deservedly so. And they got to make that move. I'd be really interested to see what happens here with Lane Kiffin, but I don't know how Ole Miss holds on to him unless they know something that we don't.
Unless Lane Kiffin feels so tied to that Ole Miss program, I just don't see a way that he doesn't go to Florida. So I second everything you just said there. You have a real opportunity to win a national championship and to build a national championship culture. He's 50 years old. He's still on the younger-ish side of coaching. He could take that job, be there for the next 15 years, and retire as a national title winner. He has a legitimate shot to do it, and I think that he needs to take that chance. It all comes down to what his aspirations are. Is he content with the success at Ole Miss?
I don't think he is.
I think he's smart enough and ambitious enough to believe that he can do more. But we'll see what happens. He needs to be the first phone call.
I don't believe here's what I'd say. I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination that there have not been conversations. I think when coaches go to the podium, there are conversations that are constantly had. Yeah. I mean, I don't see that even being in the realm of possibility, but we'll see. And Florida's would be my top job of the current jobs that are currently open. All right, let's move on here. Joe, Alabama beats Tennessee last night in the third week in October. Alabama able to hold on even with a Tennessee push there late, getting a massive pick six before halftime, pretty much sealing the deal there. When you look back at Alabama and Tennessee, how do you recap this game?
Blake, we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out who the best teams in their respective conferences are. And I think that the SEC, there has been a lot of level setting. I shared some of my apprehension of buying into Texas A&M because of some of their defensive inconsistencies, especially ones that showed up against Arkansas this past week. But Blake, after this game for Alabama, I really think that Alabama has proven that they are the best team in the SEC right now. I am going to continue to push this statement. I keep saying it, and I will say it every single season from here on out. Teams are allowed to get better. Teams are allowed to improve. They looked in the mirror after the Florida State loss, and all of their weaknesses stepped up to now become strengths. They did not allow a single sack in this game after we talked about after the Florida State game that offensive line was not good enough to playing at the level that it was at to actually go on to win more than 10 games and to be in the SEC championship conversation. That has changed. Ty Simpson continues to be a big-time playmaker. Ryan Williams continues to step up when he has been getting more and more healthy. The one thing that is legitimate a concern is the problem with running the football. Jam Miller only getting 15 yards on 12 carries, and then you're having Jeremy Bernard be your leading rusher is a serious, serious issue. But the way that they have gotten better has kind of proven to me, Blake, that they deserve to be that top team in the SEC right now.
I do agree with that. And they're undefeated in SEC play, which somebody's going to have to knock them off twice for them to likely not make that championship game. And I don't know if I see that moving forward for them. Look, I think that they're the best offensive coach staff in the SEC right now because the opening drive, and look, they're doing it with a faulty run game. And I do wonder if Hill can start getting you some things going like he did in the second half. And Jam Miller's been banged up all season. If he starts getting more healthy, you got a game next week against South Carolina. You have a bye week, and then you have LSU. That bye week and this week could do some real wonders for him. In reference to the game, Joe, they come out always with some of the best scripted stuff that I've seen. I think of the game last night. Ryan Williams doesn't have a catch. Last week, he's been banged up. You get him he makes a ridiculous catch, the fade along the right sideline. Then you get him involved in the reverse. Then you're getting involved early, like, hey, man, we got to clean this up. And that's what great offensive coordinators do. But, Joe, everybody, when they talk about Bama, constantly wants to talk about the offensive side of things. And that's not where I turn in this game in a recap. Boy, they got after Tennessee, and that pass rush finally showed up. The air getting after it. Multiple guys being able to get sacks. Aguilar having nowhere to go. That's where I think that they've gotten better more than offensively. I think offensively they can definitely clean things up, but defensively they're finally getting a pass rush against the Tennessee offensive line, who, quite frankly, I don't think is that bad and has done some really good things. But, Joe, they put so much pressure on you in reference to over these last 4 weeks that if you don't make the big play, that they'll break your back. And this is the first time since 2001 that an SEC team has in 4 straight weeks, the last month, beat a ranked opponent. Whether you agree with the teams they played should be ranked or not, it's the first time since 2001 LSU, then a month straight that Nick Saban. So to Bama fans, the last coach that beat 4 straight ranked teams in the SEC in your own conference was Nick Saban in 2001. You just did the same thing with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Joe, where I look at them is they're starting, and we talked about this after the Vandy game. Since the Diego Pavia fumble, I feel like there's nobody playing better, more complimentary football, even with mistakes. So, for an example, when Ty Simpson fumbles the football, okay, you get a hit, and then you make a massive stop. But even when it's the most pressure and you got to know what's going on, in reference to every single big play that's being made, especially in this one, it went Alabama's way. I thought Josh Heupel, for what it's worth, in Tennessee, made some bad decisions. Why are you running a play action on the 1-yard line with 7 seconds left to go? Everybody knows that you're not running the football because you have no timeouts. And listen, before I kick it back over to you here, I was really sick on Monday and got attacked by Tennessee fans for saying, try Tennessee Network, the media company in Tennessee, whoever they are. You should worry about Tony Vitello leaving you, by the way, more than you're more worried about me. But neither doesn't matter. Joey Aguilar is who he is. And once that safety happened and Bama went down and scored, then you have the pick six. It was over. And Aguilar is who he is, and you're going to have to deal with that. I think because Tennessee's had some early success, we don't realize that, look, you still had Joey Aguilar as your quarterback, and I'm not putting it all on him. He was putting everything out on the line, but he's a turnover machine. And the 2 biggest plays of the game that ultimately broke your back was the safety that you cannot have, and I get somebody stepped on his foot, but he's got to have more awareness in the end zone, and then the spider 2 wide banana on a play action that Josh Heupel should have never called. I mean, it is what it is. And I don't want to put it all on Joey Aguilar's hands, but Bama made him make the plays, and he didn't. Joe, the 2-point conversion, he throws a pick to Dijon Lee, a freshman. He got baited by a freshman. So as much as Alabama controlled it, every time that they needed to make a big play in this one, Tennessee couldn't, and Alabama did. And Shane from the Tribe, whatever network, saying that I was wrong.
I think it's just one guy, some idiot with 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Idiot.
Yeah, that guy sucks. It's soft as baby shit to, after you were correct, to then backtrack. Like, own the fact that he was wrong. You were right in your statement of Aguilar in his career has been turnover prone and he's made back-breaking turnovers. And again, we're not trying to sit here and like really crap all over Aguilar. He had some nice plays in this game.
Back-breaking decisions.
Yeah, that pick is inexcusable. He threw behind his, I think he was throwing to a tight end on that play. You can't throw that behind him. You have to put that up and away near the sideline, so at the very least it goes out of bounds. He set that up to be returned for a pick six. Xavier Brown, by the way, is freakishly fast. I think that this Tennessee team, until they get reinforcements at corner, they're an 8-win team, which is what we talked about in the preseason. Talked about like, hey, they've got a couple of issues. We don't know what to expect with Joey Aguilar. If he turns the ball over, they will lose those games, or those games that they're supposed to win confidently will end up being close. The inability to defend the pass is really starting to catch up to them. They need those reinforcements. I'm not buying into them. They're not a playoff team. They're just not.
They had a chance to get back in it. Remember, it's 23-13, and Ty Simpson had just fumbled the football. Then you had the botch snap situation, and you just couldn't overcome. But again, this Alabama team has gone against 4 straight ranked opponents. They have the number 1 strength of schedule at the current moment. It's probably not going to finish that way, but they have the number 1 strength of schedule at the current moment based off of everything that they've gone through in the last month. Mm-hmm. So looking at Alabama, yes, Tennessee's got things they got to clean up. They were good in the run game. Their defensive front is really good. Their secondary is really bad. But, Joe, this team's hitting it on a lot of cylinders. Jeremy Bernard continues to find ways, like the double pass. How that was any positive yardage last night, I have no idea. You are in situations where Ty Simpson, in my opinion, is your Heisman frontrunner. He's making all of the right decisions. Joe, when I watch Ty Simpson, I have no doubt whatsoever that there's a more prepared quarterback in the country. I feel like he's that. And listen, when you have a quarterback that is playing the way that he does and that's what's going to lead you. And listen, all the things that DeBoer took, I mean, look, both lines of scrimmage are getting better. They're playing better defensively. They got the weapons on the outside. The one flaw that they have at the current moment, can you find a way to run the football?
Yeah, and they've at least shown some ability to find a run game. It's just their worst, it wasn't a bad offensive performance, but like their worst days, the run game is non-existent. But the thing is that they've still been able to manufacture a lot of offensive production by leaning into Ty Simpson, leaning into the passing game. Ryan Williams had 2 amazing catches in this game that were amazing, and I think reminded us of why he's
more than that. The one on the third down was insane.
Yeah, he's reminding us why we believed in him as this next big star in the sport in college football. Blake, I think just to reiterate here, my final thought on this, they have improved. The improvement defensively is the most striking difference that is going to set them up for success. And I really do think that we have an opportunity here to see Alabama win the SEC if their defense can get after opposing quarterbacks and get 4 sacks and 8 tackles for loss. And if Ty Simpson can continue to be confident and make plays downfield and attack tight windows because he's got the arm and the poise and all those things you look for in a top quarterback to do so. So I'm in on this Alabama team. Since they beat Georgia, I feel like they have really, really proved that they are on a different level than some other programs in the conference.
Let me ask you this. Who's got a better resume than them right now, even with a loss?
It's them. It's them. It's absolutely them. They have the best. I can't come up with a counter example.
You can't, because nobody's played a month's worth of ranked teams. I mean, it is what it is here. All right, Joe, let's move on here. Georgia is able to hold on and take on Ole Miss and win against the Rebels. Joe, when you recap the Georgia Bulldogs being able to hold on here and beat Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss, what are your thoughts?
Gunnar Stockton, by the way, is plus 1,000 for the Heisman. If anybody on FanDuel, if anyone wants to place a bet on this,
right here. Every time that they need to make a play, I feel like it's him.
That's what I'm getting at here. I'm letting everybody know. Oh, hey, there's some pretty good value for this, because Gunnar Stockton is too far down on the Heisman rankings at the current moment, and for Heisman odds. He has had good production. He had 5 touchdowns in this game. He had 83% completion percentage on his passes. And then he also had all these super gutsy runs. He had all these super tight, important throws. I don't get what the negative thoughts on this kid are. I don't know where they're coming from. What does he do that's not great? Is it just because he's not 6'4" and he doesn't have a gigantic arm? He is the epitome of fantastic college quarterback that does everything that he needs to do to help his team win. And like what you just said, yeah, seriously, every time that they have needed a conversion on third down or a big play, he's made it. He's converted. He has shown up. I think that we obviously need to acknowledge Georgia's defense is still a complete mess. It is a serious issue that they got 0 sacks in this game. But if we're going to have this production from Gunnar Stockton, them winning 10 games this year is totally plausible, because Stockton keeps them in every single game because they can score so many points.
Well, listen, I don't think last night is an indictment on Ole Miss at all. I think it's a plus. Defensively, they are very bad. But, Joe, they came out in 5 straight drives, scored 5 touchdowns. I mean, with all due respect to Kirby Smart, with all due respect to Glenn Schumann, with all due respect to everybody, here's the truth. The truth is you have more talent on defense than what they have on offense, and you got outcoached. That is the truth. And but I'm going to, Georgia fans, before you start screaming at us, you found a way to win, and they found a way to win against Tennessee too. Mm-hmm. But this Ole Miss team, I think, should have gotten more respect last night than what people are giving them. They're still a really good team offensively. Joe, the defense has issues, and they gave up 5 straight touchdowns. That can't happen. They got run all over. I mean, there were moments and times where statistically you would look and say, Blake, no, we didn't. And then I look at the third down conversions and say, yeah, you did. But here's the thing about Georgia defensively. When they had to have it, they had it.
Mm.
I felt like in the second half, I saw a very young, sophomore-led defense who stood up and made plays. And Trinidad Chambliss didn't have a choice. They had multiple 3-and-outs. They couldn't move the football, and they made a decision, and they stopped them. But every single time, to your point, that Ole Miss would go down and score, Gunnar Stockton would keep them in the game. You lose this game last year. You find a way to lose it. But I think that, Joe, the way that they run the football, again, another game for Georgia with over 220-plus rushing yards is absolutely insane. And they keep being stubborn about running the football. Offensively, Mike Bobo and Gunnar Stockton have saved you out of a lot of situations. And I look at what Bobo has done with the tight ends. Lawson Lucky got a hat trick yesterday, 3 touchdowns. You've been able to find ways to win in multiple ways when your defense is not the strength of your team right now. It's been what Mike Bobo and Gunnar Stockton in this offensive line, who, by the way, is still banged up, has been able to find a way. But Georgia didn't get out-coached in this way. Ole Miss was one of the worst teams in the SEC in run defense. And even when you were down 9 points, you didn't get away from Bowens. You didn't get away from this run game. And one of your biggest scores was the I'm going to say Carson Beck, and I would have gotten canceled by Georgian fans. But the Gunnar Stockton zone read touchdown.
Yep.
You stayed to who you were because you knew if you kept staying to who you were going to win. Now, Joe, we got to recalibrate about our thoughts on Georgia. You cannot let this wide receiver room that you just faced off against is not the best one that you will see. It's just not. And I wonder moving forward what Georgia's going to be able to do. I don't think that there's a team that they can't beat moving forward in the teams they play in the regular season, but you're going to have to start cleaning some things up defensively if you want to get where you want to go.
Yeah, this was one of those games, and I said this in other locations. I didn't really say it on this show. It was one of those games where you could tell at home Kirby Smart recognizes the importance of needing to get the win, and then it reestablishing the trajectory of the team for the rest of the year. They needed to win in order to stay in the SEC championship conversation. I think looking in the SEC, most of the teams Georgia has the capability to beat. The problem is any team that they face for the rest of the year, I think that they can finish the rest of the season unscathed. My fear is that they're going to get to the college football playoff, and that's when their secondary is going to and their pass rush is going to completely cook them. And I'm not trying to be super negative on Georgia fans, but like that's really where this thing is going to come from.
Remember, we're Georgia homers.
Right.
Remember now.
Right. There's not many remaining teams on Georgia's schedule that I think are really going to challenge them through the air until they theoretically, if they got to the SEC championship game. But like I see a world where if they played in Ohio State, they would be on their heels. That is not a game that you're going to win because there's just too much talent at receiver. There's just too much speed. I'd even argue, and maybe this is a controversial one,
Indiana.
I would say a team like Indiana would put up, even if you played really like toe-to-toe with them, shootout style football, I would take Indiana to win that game because they've got 2 great receivers and a tremendous quarterback who, when he's had time to throw, is going to eat you alive. So that's where I come down with this, Blake, is I saw a team worthy of at least going 10-2 and getting to the college football playoff. I do not think that this is a weakened Georgia team, but they're mortal. They're more mortal than they've been in a very long time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They're one of the teams that's in the top 8 mix that if things don't go perfectly, there is a legitimate shot that they lose.
Well, hold on. Let me just say this. People look at Ole Miss and don't calibrate that they're only a 1-loss team. I don't think
Ole Miss is very good. I got to be completely honest with you. I think it was an impressive win. I have problems with that defense. That defense is ass.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You say that about Ole Miss. Georgia gave up just as many yards and points.
Okay.
So you can't really calibrate that in reference to, hey, Georgia, you can be a 10-2 team and make the playoff, but Ole Miss, who went 5 for 5 in touchdowns, is the same thing. I listen, from a talent perspective, you're 1,000% right. 1,000% Georgia has more talent on the field. The problem is, Joe, they went on the road and lost. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't look at that as an indictment on them at all.
Okay. There is a difference in the defensive performance between these two teams. Ole Miss only having 88 rushing yards and being as one-sided as they were offensively is why I don't have faith in this team. Yeah, this is my whole point, is that Georgia is absolutely flawed. But I think that Ole Miss has a lot of talent. They have a big talent gap between them and some teams.
Sure.
And the only thing that's kept them alive is Trinidad Chambliss. Like, literally the only thing that keeps them alive is Chambliss. 90% of the time, he is the one guy who keeps them in games. And I think that's incredibly volatile to have to live and die off of that. We have context to know that when Chambliss wasn't starting at the beginning of the year and Austin Simmons was looking as young and as shaky as he did, that they could barely move the ball. They were barely outscoring Kentucky, who's awful. I do not like this Ole Miss team. I think that their defense is bad. I think that they have some solid players at running back and at receiver. I don't think that their offensive line's very good. I think that they have so many problems. They didn't
give up a sack.
That's not true. Ole Miss didn't give up a sack?
Yeah,
yes, that's true. They did. Sorry, I'm mixing up with Alabama's stats. I was reading the wrong part of my notes. Blake, I still do not think if they couldn't get more than 88 rushing yards, that is the indictment.
Yeah, but here's the problem, though. On 5 of those scoring drives, they're running it right at them, and they're busting them wide open. I get what you're saying about the yardage, but when you watch the game and you got 3 third downs, 2 of them on 3rd and 6, and you're running it right at Georgia and getting first downs, I'm sorry, Joe. They did run right at him. The yards in this one is a little bit fugazi to me in reference to Chambliss sitting back in the pocket, and they're throwing the ball all over the place, and you're running it right down their throat on 3rd downs. That's the reason why they kept popping it in.
They held Kawan Lacey to 31 yards on 12 carries. He averaged 2.6 yards per carry. They wouldn't have had 88 rushing yards if it wasn't for Chambliss.
I understand that. I'm not saying that they were impressive, but at the same time, they still went 5 for 5. So I understand, and they went on the road to do it.
That's fine. I mean, but this is my point. You can have a really good quarterback who's a really good player and who's really fun to watch, and the rest of your team can be mediocre.
You know what? I would love to see Miami go into Athens and put up 35 points. They can't do it.
Yes, they could.
No, they couldn't.
Yes, they could.
They can't put 35 points on Florida, and they can't put 35 points up on Louisville. And you want to
one game doesn't define a team season. I'm going to keep saying that teams are allowed to slip up now. This is not old school college football where the best teams are unstoppable. Again, I'll bring it up. Ohio State is another one of these examples.
They went toe-to-toe with a better quarterback in Gunnar Stockton than Carson Beck. They went up against a better team and lost in a 1-score game with a better quarterback for Georgia. Carson Beck could go into these situations and piss down his leg.
Sure. I still think that
Carson Beck would have not gone
Louisville's defense statistically is far tougher than Georgia's.
Yeah. And offensively, they ain't that. Shit, they're 120. They were 120.
For the narratives, I would really be excited to see a Miami versus Georgia.
Yeah, our show might break.
That'd be sick, though. That would be sick.
It would be. We'll see. Speaking of Miami. Oh, nope. That's after this one. Look at Joe. He was panicked all week, but the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are able to hold on by Jeremiyah Love having over 200 yards rushing and absolutely going off. Joe, Notre Dame beats USC by 10. When you go back and you talk about this game and recap it, what are your thoughts?
This game was the perfect way to respond to all the USC fans, the USC media, everybody in the sphere that was talking about how Notre Dame needs USC. USC doesn't need Notre Dame. They don't need to play them. Well, I guess there's some truth to that, Blake. I guess there is some truth to that because Notre Dame really does need, and they do benefit from the fact that they get this layup of a victory every single year that makes the resume look nice. It's such a perfect, nice little piece to everything. And after the whole conversation about the rivalry possibly being discontinued, Blake, specifically with this matchup, I think you saw a version of CJ Carr where he was a lot more human. I think that there was a lot of buildup for who he was as a player, that this belief he was this untouchable, super dominant young phenom. And I think that that's still there. I think that he still has tremendous talent. But we got to remind ourselves, young guys have bad games all the time. Young guys in the sport who are in their first year starting are going to come down to reality every so often. And he was a little off this game. His accuracy was up and down. His decision-making with that really awful pick that he threw was really, really bad. But the big key thing, Mike Denbrock leaned on his run game. And he realized, and this was something that hurt them against Miami, he realized we got to keep getting the ball to Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price. Love has a Heisman moment-like game, one of the best rushing performances in the history of Notre Dame football. And they have a history of running backs that have gone through that program that is incredibly long. The last part with this, Blake, that I think is impressive for Notre Dame. I am not completely just saying Chris Ash, all sins are resolved. But their defensive performance was exactly what they needed to do. They made the necessary adjustments. They were very specific about targeting Makai Lemon and not letting him get going. He was held under 80 yards. Jacoby Lane cooked him a little bit, but it was at the expense of what they needed to do. Right. They needed to be willing to give up big plays to Jacoby Lane if they wanted to keep Makai Lemon out of the mix. And I think that the way that they played defensively was more relentless. The pass rush showed up. They were strong in coverage when they needed to be, and they made the plays necessary when they needed to. USC had a lot of miscues and mistakes, and Notre Dame did a great job at taking advantage of those.
Well, look, 470 yards by your running back room and total yardage gained is absolutely insane. The kick return, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then Jeremiyah Love, to your point, you're right, having a Heisman Trophy winning type of game with 228 rushing yards, a touchdown on 24 carries. He went completely off. Joe Denbrock was giving him the football on 3rd and 7.
He was converting.
And he was converting, which is nuts. I thought Notre Dame absolutely obliterated up front. The offensive line obliterated USC, who the last time USC went halfway across the country got obliterated up front by Illinois. With all due respect, that's who they are when they go on the road. They play really good defensively at home, but on the road, man, they can't – I mean, with all due respect to them, they can't find a way. I agree with you. I thought Denbrock did a great job when CJ Carr – I mean, you could tell he had an off night. If the interception of running around like a chicken with his head cut off and throwing the pick didn't indicate that a young guy was just not on that night, it was indicative of that. And an experienced OC said, listen, we gotta win this one in the rain with a good running game. Price went off. But I look at this game in a couple of ways. When we're just talking about the game, Joe, it was a really nice back and forth there for a while. You got this situation. Let me start off with this. USC is down 14-10, and they go for it on 4th down. And we were tweeting about this during the game. What in the hell is Lincoln Riley doing? Throwing the ball in the flat twice on 3rd down and on 4th down. And I'm not trying to Monday morning
in the rain. In the rain, by the way.
In the rain. And then you get in a situation where you don't convert. And you go jumbo package in tight, and you think getting the ball to Lane McCree when you have Makai Lemon on the field, why don't you scheme up to the best player and say, if we're going to go for it on 4th down, why don't we live with Makai Lemon? Here's another thing. And this is not to try to take away from Notre Dame. Joe, why were you going to reverse pass with Lemon in the rain?
In the rain. Like, that's the key
in the
part.
Rain.
In the rain.
Why would
he
you
drop
do
the ball in the rain? You're a team from Southern California. What did you expect?
That also comes after Mayava just threw a touchdown pass. Then you get in a situation where you go up after a Jacoby Lane, what was it, 66-yard bomb for a touchdown. It looked like a blown coverage.
Yeah,
maybe it wasn't.
It wasn't blown coverage. I mean, we got to be honest with it. Was Christian Gray got cooked. He got
either he's going to make it, either he's going to pick it off or he's getting cooked. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just the truth.
He had a tough one.
And they go up 24-21. And then Price has the long kick return for a touchdown. All right. Then you get in a situation where, with all due respect, Notre Dame allowed you to stay in the game, and you kept making stupid decisions if you're Lincoln. They missed an extra point. They made it 27-24. You get the ball back. You get in a situation where Notre Dame gets the ball back. Joe, they miss a field goal. And I'm like, brother, all right, time to go get your best weapon, the football, and find a way. Put him in the slot. Do something. Notre Dame completely outcoached Lincoln in this one. Chris Ash,
as they've done.
As they've constantly done. And I'm not trying to take away from Notre Dame because you lined up and you ran the ball at them and you punched them in the mouth. Does Notre Dame got to clean up this field goal and extra point situation after
They're dealing with injuries at kicker? So I don't disagree. Special teams needs to be cleaner.
I mean, look, the A&M situation, and then last night, it's regardless of what the situation that you're going through, it's got to get cleaned up. But the bottom line is that Notre Dame did the things that they had to do to overcome in a rivalry game where Lincoln, I felt like, was a little too tight. And his quarterback didn't give him any help. But if you're going to have one of the best running backs in the country that's going to run like that moving forward, and quite frankly, you're going to get that level of push from your offensive line, that's what's going to allow you to win games. And it was impressive showing from that offensive line of Notre Dame.
And I think this is the biggest thing that Marcus Freeman deserves recognition for this team taking the step forward that they have, is that they are locked in for their big games, and they're now doing a much more refined job of making sure that they don't get caught off guard and that they don't slip when there's an opportunity presented to them. They realized, and they know, and they understand they had to win that game. They have to win the rest of their games confidently. They had to win all the games leading up to this confidently in order to get into the college football playoff. And I think that now the simple truth of this, and we talked about this, you win this game, you are now in the driver's seat of getting into the CFP. You now just have to win out with a couple of maybe tough matchups against Pitt and Navy. They have full control of getting to the playoff as long as they finish 10-2. The one thing that could theoretically screw them, and I think that this is a totally fair thing, and I think Notre Dame fans need to recognize this. This is a year where there's a really strong chance there could be a bunch of 10-2 teams. And they just need to hope that there is not especially a better
from the SEC, especially from the SEC.
Well, and I think the Big Ten too. There's a really good chance
too,
we could see a bunch of 10-2 teams. We could see some 9-3 teams with some really tough resumes. I think that they need to really hope that Miami and Texas A&M win out, or at least come dang close to it. And here's where the big problem comes into play. What the hell do you do with 10-2 Miami, 10-2 Texas A&M, and 10-2 Notre Dame? That is where Notre Dame sadly has to root for the teams that they lost to.
Well, here's the thing. Hold on, pause. You have a 10-2 Miami. With all due respect to Notre Dame, you're not getting in.
That's my point.
Right. Well,
that's my point.
You won't have a 10-2 Miami. Let me explain to you why. You got to hope that they win the ACC, yes, because then that boosts you. But here's the problem. Joe, they won't be 10-2. Either they'll be 10-3 because they're playing the ACC title game, or 11-2. So this
is my point.
Right. So these other teams. So here's the real truth. It really doesn't have anything to do with Miami. Let me explain. You better pray to God that Georgia beats the ever-living shit out of Georgia Tech. And you better pray to God that there's a situation where Louisville or Georgia Tech start losing here, because I don't think it's the SEC and Big Ten that's going to keep you out. I think it's what happened last year with the ACC that's keeping you out of this one.
And the Big 12, too, for that matter, is that if theoretically Texas Tech with their health issues with Bear Morton, if they lose another game, you've got this is where the chaos comes into play. And that's why I don't want Notre Dame fans to just assume that they're in, because you have those two teams that beat you now stacked up against you. And then laterally, you could theoretically have a bunch of other 10-2 teams. You're right. The ACC, there's a world that happens that complicates things for the matter, where there could be 3 teams from the ACC that are in the conversation, in the discussion.
Yeah, because then what do you do with Louisville?
Right. So this is the whole this is the complex nature of this, and I think that Notre Dame fans are smart enough to recognize this. But at the same time, it's like we start thinking about all these teams. If Louisville needs to finish 9-3, and I don't want to get into the semantics of all that and the details of all that, but they need to dominate every team that they play. And then just sit back and see how everything looks when it comes decision time.
Let's get to brass tacks here. with all due respect, and don't take this the wrong way because deep down you know it's true. You have one thing that all those other teams don't have.
What's that?
You got that golden dome on the side of your head. And ratings are ratings.
But Miami's also a big brand, and Texas A&M is also a big brand. And Texas is a big brand.
No. Well, Texas is losing another game. They got to play A&M. They're not winning that game.
Well, but this could all come in. This is what I'm saying is that we don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. So there's
I'll make a bet with you right now that Texas.
There's a theoretical world where Texas beats Texas A&M and they're both 10-2, and then it's just an even bigger mess.
I meant that you were a bigger brand than Georgia Tech and Louisville, and if it came down to it, one of those teams would get the hose and you would not.
Good point.
All right, let's move on here. Speaking of the ACC and speaking of Louisville and Miami. Joe, Friday night college football is the goofiest and weirdest things that you will ever see. Just ask teams in Florida, like Florida State and Miami. Jeff Brom, 3-0 versus the top 10 in his time at the University of Louisville. Joe, I know I'm just going to kick it over to you. When you recap this game, what are your thoughts?
Look, I know that there's a lot of
I'm about to go off. Go ahead.
I understand that. I don't care if anyone wants to say that this is excuse making for Miami, because I don't think that it is. It is no longer the world, Blake, where we live in that teams have to go unscathed. We are more of a professionalized NFL version of the sport than we have seen. In the NFL, teams lose all the time, and they still go to the playoffs. This Miami team absolutely is more flawed than I gave them credit for. I think that what obviously hurt them in this game, they couldn't run the ball. And as what I had mentioned a million times over, why I liked and trusted this Miami team was that when they couldn't run the ball in other games, Carson Beck stepped up. Tony stepped up. Tony stepped up in this game. Carson Beck did not. Carson Beck took 3 steps backward. Mario Cristobal, in terms of his pregame preparation for this team coming out with energy at home, took 3 steps backward. This was not the version of Miami that we saw weeks prior. And I personally kind of reject this belief that there was evidence that they had issues leading up to this. Because everything
you could give would be the last time that we saw them, they also couldn't run the football.
Okay. But it wasn't to this degree. It wasn't to this degree of issue where they only had 63 yards rushing.
No, you're right. It wasn't this bad.
Carson Beck, his performance was abysmal, and I'm not trying to completely rag on him for the way that he played. His arm
played over 7 figures.
Fair. I just don't like going after guys in their early 20s, but he is legitimately a big reason for their loss. His injured elbow clearly has caused problems for his ability to drive the ball downfield. It led to an interception against Florida, and it led to multiple picks in this game. One of them was a really bad decision, but I think that he thinks he's got more juice in his arm than he actually currently does at the moment because of the recovery to his elbow.
I agree.
The Tony pick floated that thing up there, and it gave the defensive backs times to adjust it.
And that was a ridiculous play.
I think that if he had last year's arm strength, that was a touchdown. That was a big play, but it fluttered and it was up there like a punt. He can't drive the ball the way that he used to. He just can't. And I think that the way that he played and the risks that he took, it was the version of him at Georgia where he thought he had to do everything. And the last pick was an example of that. Just needed to be a little bit more composed. I get it. Miami is not the team that I build them out to be. But I still think that they're a great football team. And I still think that they're a top 6 team.
All right. For the last month, I have been taking a lot of shit from this Miami fan base. I should have known better because it happened the same way last year. You got out-coached. And when people come out here and say Mario's going to Mario, do you get it now? Now, I do agree that Carson Beck had a bad game, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, but I got to start with Louisville. That defensive line punched that Miami offensive line right in the mouth. And there was not much that they can do about it. No running back had over 20 yards rushing. None. And they have a stable of them. The truth of the matter was 61, Brockmeyer, that interior offensive line, your left tackle, they got their shit pushed in. There's no other way to describe it. You did. Carson Beck was under pressure majority of the night and taking massive amounts of hits. Joe, going into this game, we talked about this Louisville team, and we talked about this Louisville defense and who they are and what they are. And I go back and say, Joe, coming into this game, this team was 12th in the country in total defense. They were 8th in the country in pass defense. They were 3rd in the country in third down. Oh, and by the way, they were one of the top teams in the country defending the run. And the question was, well, have they really played anybody like Miami that can physically push them around? And I honestly thought going into this game that Miami would get push. But the God's honest truth was it was the opposite way. You got out coached from the opening kickoff. Joe, the fake field goal, you had to have known something was going to happen. You had to have known. They had all the momentum. Then you get in a situation where you put their best player in one-on-one coverage, and you got out coached with a drag route. And quite honestly, early, Jeff Brom had this entire defensive staff confused. During the game, it was reported. Please go back and listen to the TV copy if you don't believe it. It is reported. Miami players were coming over to the sideline saying, and I quote, "We have absolutely no idea what's going on out there. How are they beating us? They're beating you because you were in simple man coverage." And yet again, Joe, they got lost. They were getting lost in man coverage. Now, Chris Bell is an amazing wide receiver. I think you have amazing talent if you're Miami. But the truth of the matter was one team wanted it more and one coaching staff wanted it more. They were in their bag. And look, I give Miami credit for battling back and doing what they did. But when you don't have a running game and your offensive line that's supposed to be heralded as one of the best gets pushed around and you're asking Carson Beck to beat you with his arm, you're going to have these level of performances like he had a year ago. I agree with you on the arm strength thing. I think you're dead on accurate with that. But outside of Makai Toney, what could they do? There wasn't anything they can do. And I look at this game and go back and watch it like I did today and say to myself, I am impressed by how well coached this Louisville team was on both sides of the football. With Miller Moss, who quite honestly was the better quarterback in this one. By landslide, just to be honest.
He was. And I also think another part that you missed with this, Isaac Brown was struggling. The Louisville offensive line was struggling to run the ball before this game. And he found a lot of big lanes. I think that two things need to be separated here, and this is why I'm very against the just immediate, reaction. Miami's. I'm not saying that you're doing this. It's more so about the commentary, people commenting on our videos and people commenting on social media. We can't just go, Miami's cooked, they're screwed.
I didn't say they were cooked.
I know. I didn't say that you said that. We have to separate the framing of the discussion. We can have the conversation of what went wrong and what they did poorly and what they can't repeat in the future. Everything you just said is completely correct. O-line played poorly. Run game couldn't get going.
D-line
didn't play well. Yeah. I still have games of evidence before this performance against respectable opponents where all of those things that were issues for them today were their strengths. And I'm willing to still bet on Miami to bounce back. I'm going to keep saying this. Teams are allowed to get better. Teams are also allowed to lose games now. You can get out-coached, and you can rebound and get back on track. I think that there's an opportunity for it, and Miami must absolutely do this to look in the mirror and realize they can't let that happen again. They can't. They can't. I still see a team. One game should not be the deciding factor in assessing if this team is capable of getting to a national championship or at least an ACC title or not. I think that they showed weaknesses on film that now teams can absolutely attack. But I still see a team that's got physicality, and a well-coached defense. That didn't show up on Friday. It has to show up in the future and for the rest of the games on their schedule.
If you can show this once, it can be replicated.
I don't disagree with it. That's why you got to be focused and not allowing for it to be replicated.
Joe, but I look at a game, I think they were focused. I just think that they got pushed around. I mean,
I don't disagree with that. My point is that the way that we determine if Mario Cristobal is really taking the step forward or not is if they improve and they bounce back, or they do what happened last year where they fell apart.
Well, let me ask you this: when has he shown that he can?
Well, that's what I'm at. That's what I'm literally calling upon. Is that he hasn't. Last year, they suffered a loss and then it snowballed. Mm-hmm. This has to be a galvanizing moment for them.
I think it's going to snowball again in the regular season. I don't know when, and I don't even know if it comes with a loss. Let me get to Carson Beck really quickly.
Okay.
It wasn't just the interceptions. It was mostly the decision making. Right? Like I can live with the Tony long throw. What I can't live with is the pump, the hitch and go that you threw on the outside. That's just a bad decision. It's a horrible decision. The tip pass and at the end of the game, I don't know if I put all on him, but it also comes to a situation where it looks like he checks to the line for a different protection. Everybody slides left. They go to slide protection. That's on him for that ball getting tipped. He's going to have another performance like that. I don't know if it's 4 straight interceptions, but I don't think it gets worse, to your point. I don't know if it can get worse than what Friday happened. I mean, technically, I guess it could, but it just gets to a situation where both sides of the football got massively outcoached. And
I don't disagree with that.
I do question, do you have enough playmaking offensively that if Makai Toney's not there to save you, can you overcome it? You talked about a national championship run. There's going to be a team that is clever enough to take away Makai Toney and say, please, dear God, everybody else beat us. Please. I don't disagree. Double dog dare you.
Yeah.
And I got to be real with you. I think Louisville showed the blueprint, and you better find a way to start running the football because Carson Beck's not going to be able to throw you into wins.
But this is part of kind of my belief in this is that the blueprint requires for Miami's offensive line to get manhandled and for them to not be able to run the ball. And I think that they have enough talent. But this is why I'm saying that they didn't come out swinging. They came out, it felt like they were flat the whole first quarter. And they're not a team with the way that they've imposed their will to set the tone early against all of their opponents that can come out flat. You can't come out flat when your identity is running the football. You just can't. Trying to scratch your way back into a game, running the rock is not something that is necessarily going to truly work because then you end up putting too much pressure on Beck to throw the ball the amount of times that he did and to take the shots that he did that he couldn't connect on.
Well, and I got to be real with you. I know, and I'm not trying to call him or you out. Just stay with me and let me finish before you bite my head off.
Okay.
How does Heatherman not know the double and try to take away Chris Bell at any cost? Like how after the first 3 third down conversions, at what point do you just say we're going to completely take him away and let somebody else beat us? I'm not trying to be rude here, but please tell me where they were going and where they went on every third down. Because you want to hear it? Here's the first half. You ready? Literally, look at this. Okay, here it is. On every third down pass, do you want to know who was intended to besides once?
Scores Bell. And he's a top 5 receiver in the sport.
On.
He's a top 5 receiver in the NFL draft.
Bullshit. In this draft,
bullshit. There's truth to it. He's a top.
He ain't in the top 5. He's in the top 3, and he ain't number 2 or number 3.
Well, it's Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, Makai Lemon, Chris Bell.
I'm taking him over all of them. I'm taking him over.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
He's too big and too fast and too strong and too physical.
He's A.J. Brown. Seriously, he's A.J. Brown. That's who I've compared him to. I put my comp out him over the summer. I had a couple people text me after that, and I was like, that is the most spot on. That's my one. I'm not going to comp. That's my one comp.
And runs a 4.4, Joe, it's over.
Oh, he's gonna run like a high 4.4, probably like run like a 4.49. He's a big physical dude. He's a really good player.
But to the point, when do you take him away?
I don't disagree. I mean, that was the obvious misjudgment.
It's bad, very bad. Want to go to a team that also got completely outcoached?
Oh yes.
LSU gets upset by Vanderbilt. Complete embarrassment. Your thoughts?
Like, look, I'm being quite candid with you here. I'm like not trying to. I'm not trying to like rub anything.
There's nothing you're going to say that I didn't say yesterday.
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
But I want to be very clear here. LSU fans, for some reason, some LSU fans think I have some sort of grudge against LSU because I am a Notre Dame fan. I have said this time and time again. I don't care what Brian Kelly does and what he's done to this point because I have my own coach that I respect and that I like after I was wrong about assessing who he was. The only times I've reacted is when people start chiming in when I say things about Notre Dame. Blake, I think that you're at the point where you have to have a serious conversation on the future of the program.
I'm with you.
It doesn't, to me personally, and I know that this is just from the national perspective, from my perspective, it doesn't make sense to get rid of him and to fire him with how big his buyout is. It doesn't in my eyes. Absolutely next season is when he is legitimately on the hot seat. I think his buyout goes down to $40 million. My problem.
No one's counting, but
it sounds like you are. My problem is that we just fired James Franklin. And the reason why we just fired James Franklin was that he bought in and got the administration and the fan base to buy into dumping resources into this year being their title run.
Mm-hmm.
They lost 3 straight games. 2 of them were inexcusable. LSU did not lose inexcusable games. But for Brian Kelly to have framed this season and this offseason as the buy-in, the preparation, the lead-up, the path to a national title, to win in the SEC, I'm going to get it done. And they are falling short in games that they're supposed to win. These are supposed to be winnable ranked games against Ole Miss and against Vanderbilt. Like, they simply just don't look like they have the toughness to fight through a fist fight. They don't. And that's the biggest problem that I have with this team. And Joe Sloan, for the love of God, should have been taking his play calling away months ago. That is the head coach's responsibility. It's what got James Franklin fired with Andy Kotelnicki being a bad play caller. And now we've got the same thing happening with Joe Sloan, calling all these dumb plays in situations that don't make sense. You couldn't convert after getting Caden Durham down to the
hold on
the 1 yard line.
Let me stop you right there. I don't go to in-season press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Ask me what my question was to Brian Kelly 2 weeks ago.
What was it?
Why are you rotating guys in and out when you have critical moments in games? And he said, we've been better at that. No, he hadn't. I'm calling for Cortez to be fired because that's inexcusable. So what? Barryon Brown got in a scuffle at the 1 yard line. It's a tough game. You could you can be down by 3. Continue. But
that was it. I
face-to-face asked him, it's idiotic. It's stupid. And quite frankly, 2 things are going on right now. I don't think the culture's bad. No. A lot of former players are saying the culture's bad. They're wrong. The coaching's bad. I can look at Billy Napier and say, there's a good culture. It's a bad coach. Brian Kelly's not a good coach right now. There's a complete difference. And people don't want to look at that in the face and say, oh, former players are right. Brother, no, he's not. The culture's not bad. The coaching's horrible. You settle with Joe Sloan. And to be frank with you, there's 2 teams in FBS that have not scored over 25 points against P4 opponents, North Carolina and LSU. LSU's got to find a run game. You did. You had a 5-star running back that was getting 6 yards a carry. He got 5 carries in the first half, then got 6 touches the rest of the way. Why? You're getting absolutely abused in time of possession, and you're running the ball for 6 yards a carry, and you can't stop them. You can't stop them. So what do we want to do? We want Garrett Nussmeier to throw the football around with a left tackle that went out in Tyree Adams. You ran the ball for 6 yards a carry. Garrett Nussmeier I got to give him this, played his heart out, took some massive shots. LSU made some plays, and at the end, they had 2 situations where the defense forced 3 and outs, and they could get nothing. All about what happened in the red zone at the 1-yard line. They're not a well-coached team at all. They have no idea what they're doing offensively. And quite frankly, here's just the truth. Whether Brian Kelly stays or goes, there's got to be a complete change on the offensive side of things. Complete. And LSU fans right now feel like they're stuck because you have a coach that has a massive buyout, and either you're going to have to change, which you're going to have to change the offensive staff either way. But are you going to spend that much money to change and completely cut out the entire offensive staff and Brian Kelly still stay there or not? You got to be able to win games multiple ways. Sorry, go ahead.
So no, you're good. I keep thinking that you were done.
I'm done. I'm done.
This is a lingering. It's a lingering
People
issue
act
now.
like I've been defending him. Where have I defended him in any loss? Early on in 2022, when he had 30 scholarship players, yeah, I'm going to defend him. I mean, he had to go out and get 47 players from the portal. Yes, in 2022, I'm going to defend him because at what point do you sit there and say, "Hey, he's inheriting a dumpster fire"? But here's the problem: you had to do it again, and you had to do it again, and you had to do it again, and then you called out the fan base and you called them spoiled.
See, and that's where the big problem now comes.
Oh, he's gonna find out how spoiled they are.
The framing of how everything has been approached, and that's why I have never really been truly a fan of his communication and his lack of ownership for issues. That at the end of the day, the biggest thing you just said, the coaching is the biggest issue because you have one of the most talented rosters in college football. This was, again, it comes back to the James Franklin comparison where they had one of the most talented rosters in college football. But you have running backs who aren't getting used effectively. You have an offensive line that's getting completely bodied in every single game. You've got Garrett Nussmeier, who had first-round talent and who has not taken a step forward or improved. You've got all of these things on the offensive side of the ball that are just way under capability. And that is where Brian Kelly has to take ownership. Mm-hmm. He has to. He has to take some sort of ownership. Like I do think that there is a somewhat of a path for him still to find success at LSU because that's where it might shock Notre Dame fans for me saying. But he needs to stop doing this crap where he's done this in the past where he's pulled a quarterback, he's fired coordinators immediately, he's looked in the mirror and he's done it quickly. I don't think he's done that at LSU. No, I don't know if it's complacency because he's got this big contract and he's at his last job of his career. It feels like that he has become incredibly complacent. And we're now living in this world where he's not trying to take that step forward and he's not recognizing that they have to make aggressive adjustments in order to get there. We'll see what happens, man.
Look, you got outcoached by a former assistant, and we need to talk about Vanderbilt here.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt did everything humanly possible to outcoach a team. And Joe, I got to be real with you. I think on both lines of scrimmage, because I don't think LSU defensively is bad, but they will push people around and they play their style of football, and they just continued to be one of the best teams on third down. Joe, they're second in the country in third down rate because Pavia just knows how to run the system. They run triple option principles. They ran 5 plays in the second half. 5. It's like Herman Boone once said on Remember the Titans, just like Novocaine, give it time, it'll work. And they couldn't stop it. When I look at Vandy, man, I don't know what their ceiling is, but Clarkley has completely turned the program around in 5 years before BK could turn a program in LSU around in 4. And that's just a fact.
Which is impressive. I think that, and I also ironic because he's a Brian Kelly.
Mike Elko's done the same thing.
Yeah.
Brian Kelly's been very good at hiring people. What he hasn't been good at is taking it serious in reference to, hey, man, there are times that you got to take over.
Right. It does seem like that's what I'm saying. The complacency's passed off a lot of the blame that can go towards other people instead of himself. I think for the Vanderbilt side of things, I think that they are realistically last year's South Carolina team, where they're going to steal games and they're going to be really tough out because their quarterback's super elusive and their scheme is tremendous. But I really don't understand these narratives that like they win a game like this. And the same narrative was brought up after the South Carolina game that there's some sneaky title dark horse and they could win the SEC. I just don't
they
personally see that. I think that they're a really well-coached team that has a great culture and a great intensity. But I think talent-wise, there's absolutely a gap. Absolutely. I don't think that the way that their secondary played and some of the big plays that they gave up to an LSU offense that's been a mess, that stuff to me is an issue because when Vanderbilt actually goes up against Missouri coming up soon, that to me is the thing when reality sets in.
We got to talk about Vandy and Missouri this week.
And I think that
5-1 teams, 6-1.
The rest of their schedule that they've got coming up, I don't think it's for certain that they beat Texas. On the road. I don't think it's for certain that they actually could probably beat Tennessee, and I can absolutely see them. They're going to kick the crap out of Kentucky. They're probably going to beat Auburn, but they have to finish the season strong and they need to play their best ball. I just don't see a team though that has that like real true championship caliber structure. I think that there's legitimate holes and they're outplaying those holes because they have such intensity and such focus.
Yeah, I agree with you. Very impressive performance. And here's what I'd say. I think there's more going on behind the scenes at LSU than people even realize. We'll leave it. No, ain't no belief on it. The eye Blake says so. I mean, I'm just look, man, you gonna find out how toxic this place is. Shit, you gonna find out. Any thoughts on Texas Tech losing to Arizona State before we get to these super chats?
I think that there's generally a lot of overreaction to the Texas Tech performance, and I think that there's a lot.
We see why Hammond was a backup.
Will Hammond is talented. He is a good, talented player. He's also very young, and he's clearly not ready. I think that it's really lazy and easy just to be like, you're wrong about Texas Tech. They suck. Like, that's what a lot of these comments from Arizona State fans were on the comments in the video. You went up against the backup quarterback, and the offense clearly was suffering. Leavitt played great, and he took advantage of the opportunity. I think that once Morton's back, and if he can finish the year healthy, they're going back on their same trajectory that they had before. I don't feel at all off on my assessment on that team whatsoever. Backup quarterbacks in the damn game. We got to look at the damn team differently.
It's so funny. People weren't saying that last week. The only thing I'd say, Leavitt made some insane throws. The play calling for Texas Tech was absolutely abysmal.
Yeah, it was bad.
Short side option on 4th and 6. You put in a non-mobile quarterback on the short side of the field with an option. Then what was the punt? That was so bad. What was the punt formation, by the way? You know special teams more than I do. The punt. What the?
I didn't break the lineup that down that effectively.
They literally had 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. They had 4 on the line of scrimmage all the way to the far right boundary, 3 to the far left boundary. They had 2 guys in the middle and 1 guy protecting the punter.
So usually when you have a offset punt scheme, you're supposed to adjust with the punt shield, and they did. Yeah, it was clearly a miscommunication by whoever the personal protector was that he was probably supposed to. He probably didn't look. He probably didn't look to say like we got to move. We got to move.
So dumb, dude. Yeah. So dumb. All right,
avoidable.
Couple of super chats here. Bug says Blake hold that L. Ohio State clears. Stop it, Joe. How am I going to take a L when you gave me $2?
Yeah, thanks, Dick Buck. Well, come on, man. What are we doing here?
Elk says, Joe, stop lumping Ohio State in with Miami.
I'm not lumping you in with Miami. My point is, this is where, and your next comment, and this is what pisses me off with listeners sometimes. Don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say these things. The statement that I said at the beginning of the show, the statement that I said on Twitter, college football this year is unpredictable. So why would I sit here and predict that Ohio State goes undefeated? Why would I do that? Anything can happen, and anything has happened. I'm not lumping them in together. I'm merely pointing out they could get snuck up on. It happens. It happens in the sport. The other comment that Alex had is, Joe, it's because you said after the Miami lost to an unranked team for the third straight year, well, Louisville's now ranked. Outside Michigan, what unranked team has Ryan Day lost to? Is it not equally as inexcusable to lose to Michigan when they're unranked?
I mean, an 8-4 team, too.
Like, you're acting like that's like, oh, no big deal. We lost to Michigan.
I think it's funny that the same people that were coming in here literally less than a year ago calling for Ryan Day to be fired are his biggest defenders.
Like, Alex, come on, man. You're one of our favorite. You're our favorite listener. You've been the number one guy who tunes in, but like, you know what you're doing. You know that you're riling me up on purpose.
I personally like it. Douglas on YouTube says, how many coaches get fired after playing Oregon this year? Top tier show, guys. Love it. I'd have to look at their schedule.
Did Schiano get fired?
I didn't see that he did. I guess we can look it up.
I'm looking it up right now.
No,
he didn't get fired. But actually, no, there's no one else on the schedule that's probably.
Did you see Greg Schiano's post game, by the way?
No, I missed it.
So he's got a new president and a new AD. Kelly Zinn from LSU and William Tate from LSU. Mm-hmm. He literally went in his post game and said, this is the first time that we ever actually have an administration that wants to give us funds for football. He said, we have not paid anybody in NIL money. Nobody's helped us.
So, I mean, Rutgers is sleeping giant, man.
Hold on. Pause. William Tate believes, and I've had this conversation with him face to face, he wants sports to be the front porch of his university. Always has.
It always should be. Rutgers has a hive of people that will support it when they do well, and it's got a lot of great recruits.
He's going to go out there and raise money for athletics. You're going to have to deal with him wanting it for more basketball purposes. Aaron says, just showing love as I discovered you guys at the end of last season. Love the dynamic between and the differences between both. Keep it up. Go Dogs. We greatly appreciate that. Yeah, the dog fans love us, man. Graham Coffee apparently has like a message board, and people always post our content in there. So keep posting it in other message boards. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Alan says, Riley throws on 4th and 1 foot. Shaking my head. We were really in this, but Riley gets cooked. His goofy trick plays are unnecessary, and home cooking refs didn't help either. I don't know about the home cooking refs. They threw a lot of flags on Notre Dame for pass interferences, which were warranted.
They were warranted.
But here's the thing. He did listen, this is not to I swear to God, this isn't a takeaway from Notre Dame at all. I still don't think they win. But Joe, come on. I mean, those 3 instances were some of the worst called situations I've seen in a hot minute.
I don't think that you are, and I think Notre Dame fans realize, but this is why I actually think that Notre Dame fans are even more proud of the performance, because it's like, oh, Lincoln Riley was supposed to be this great coach, and we gave him this huge contract, and Marcus Freeman is out preparing his team so much. Sorry, I'm distracted. The Broncos just tried to throw a pass to an offensive lineman, and he completely face planted. You're going to see it on Twitter. In like 5 minutes, you'll probably see it on Twitter. He completely ate shit. Sorry.
All right, well, send it to me when you
I will.
Alan also says at least Mario didn't throw in a monsoon on 4th and a foot.
Lincoln Riley is one of the most over. Actually, I said this in the offseason. He's the most overrated coach in college football.
It's so bad, man. It's just so bad. I mean, and Mayava didn't help him at all, but you didn't put him in. You're making him throw in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
I don't blame Mayava for that. Alex says, Brian Kelly, when you leave a private school that prioritizes academics just to get beat by a private school that prioritizes academics.
It's also your defensive coordinator, former defensive coordinator, that beats you too, which is kind of crazy.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you right now, Louisiana people will not put up with it. This isn't a situation where he thinks that just because he's got a massive buyout, they'll do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. So
we'll see what happens.
If they'll fire Ed after the best team, orchestrating the best team of all time, they'll fire your ass.
Right.
Dane Bergeron with a $5 super chat says LSU doesn't have the players. They are soft as baby poo. This is the worst staff since Curly Hallman. That Ed Orgeron staff in 2021 was pretty god awful. This is a better staff than that. But Dane, who is going to take me and Joe duck hunting, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, but I think that they've got the athletes.
It's not the worst staff. It's one of the worst offensive staffs. That's for damn sure. Man says Norvell fired. Jay Norvell, that is. He also says that Fran Brown fell off. I'd still send my son to play for Fran Brown tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that the roster just got really picked apart at the very end of the offseason. It was just bad time. And also, Angeli got hurt, and they were great with Angeli. And Ricky Collins just
told you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's not Fran Brown's fault.
No, not at all. He also says, no Bauer Sharp slander, Blake. I'm shocked. Bauer Sharp, in my opinion, should not be seeing the field for LSU. And that's the part. You spend all this money in NIL and you do contracts and people got to play a certain amount of snaps and it's not going to work. Brother, hold on.
That's a problem.
Hold on. Because I told you about this. Damn, Royce, always giving us money. Hold on. I said this to you in the offseason. Trey'Dez Green. Freak or not. Complete freak.
Best athlete on the field.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And you're putting a dude in over him.
It doesn't make any sense.
Think about that. Brother, he's Jimmy Graham. He's Jimmy Graham. I mean, that's how great I think he can be. Mm-hmm. With maybe not the mental issues. Oh, this makes me want to punch another wall. Royce Pierce with a $50 super chat, always showing us love here, Joe.
Thank you, Royce.
Guys, I hope y'all have a great afternoon. Hope you all have a great week and stay safe. I'm just getting off of work. Well, we're not going to have a great week if you're an LSU fan.
But thank you, Royce.
But
means a lot.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good night. Peace.